They told me I was selfish, ungrateful, dramatic. They said I was just jealous of my sister's success. But they never told anyone the truth that my parents stole from me, that they buried me in debt just to make her shine. On my 25th birthday, while they handed her the keys to a $3 million mansion, they gave me an envelope filled with bills. That was the day I realized I was never part of their family, just their backup plan. But they had no idea what I was about to do next. I remember my 25th birthday not because it was joyful, but because it broke me in a way I didn't think possible. I woke up that morning hopeful, maybe foolishly so. I had no grand expectations, just something, a small cake, maybe a kind word, a little moment where I could pretend I mattered. But instead, I walked into the living room to find my parents beaming, not at me, but at my sister. She was glowing in a white dress, standing next to her fiancé, holding a massive, glittering gold key. "Surprise!" my mom shouted. "We bought them a house. $3 million, fully furnished." Everyone clapped. My sister squealed and jumped up and down. And I just stood there, stunned, like a stranger crashing someone else's celebration. I looked around, trying to understand. My name wasn't mentioned once. No one looked at me. No one said happy birthday. I didn't even get a hello. Then my dad walked over and handed me an envelope. For a split second, I thought, maybe it's a check or a heartfelt letter. Maybe they remembered after all. But no. Inside was a debt notice from a private loan company. A $42,000 loan, taken out of my name when I was 18. I felt the blood drain from my face. What is this?" I asked. My dad shrugged. "We needed help with the down payment for our college back then. You weren't using your credit anyway." My mom chimed in. "It's time you started paying your share. You're 25 now." I just stood there blinking. No warning. No apology. Just, "Here's your debt. Now smile for the camera while we gift your sister a mansion." I want to scream. I wanted to cry. But I didn't either. I just smiled tightly, nodded, and walked away while they toasted to her new beginnings. That night, I sat alone in my room, staring at the ceiling, my birthday dinner untouched beside me. For years, I had told myself maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I was being dramatic. But that night, I stopped making excuses. I saw everything clearly. I wasn't a daughter in this family. I was a utility, and they made sure I'd never forget it. Growing up, the favoritism wasn't obvious at first. It was subtle. It was in the way my sister always got the front seat, even when I asked first. It was in how my achievements were met with a nod, while hers, no matter how small, earned cake, balloons, and praise like she'd just won an Olympic medal. I remember once getting straight A's on my report card. I walked in, excited, holding it out to my mom. She barely glanced at it before saying, "That's nice, but your sister made it to the second round of the school play auditions." That's what it was always like. Her bare minimum overshadowed my best. When she got a D, they blamed the teacher. When I got a B+, they asked why it wasn't an A. I told myself it was just sibling dynamics. That maybe, somehow, I was misreading everything. But deep down, I always knew. She was the golden child. And I was just there. Background noise. A name they remembered when something needed to be done. When she turned 16, she got a brand new Audi. My college fund paid for it. I didn't even get a bike. They said I wasn't ready for the responsibility. I started working at 16, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. I paid for my clothes, my books, my meals. I worked after school shifts while she went to dance classes, spa weekends, and private SAT prep. When I brought it up once, carefully, cautiously, my mom sighed and said, "She's delicate. You're tougher. You can handle more." I wasn't being praised. I was being dismissed. Every holiday, every birthday, every family gathering, I stood in the background while she stood in the spotlight. And no matter how much I smiled or tried to be happy for her, a small piece of me kept breaking off, year after year. By the time I turned 25 and they gave her a mansion while handing me a debt notice, it wasn't a shock. It was just confirmation. I had always known my place in this family. I just didn't want to believe it. 1 week after the mansion surprise, everything took another turn. My grandfather died. He was the only person in my entire family who ever made me feel seen. He wasn't loud about it. He didn't spoil me. But he noticed things. Like how I sat silently at dinners while everyone praised my sister. How I got up early to help in the kitchen while my sister slept in, and still got the credit. He once pulled me aside and told me, "You have a quiet strength. That's the kind of strength people overlook until it changes everything." I never forgot that. When he passed, I didn't just lose my grandfather. I lost the one person who made me feel like I mattered. We gathered for the reading of his will at his lawyer's office. Everyone was dressed in black, pretending to grieve while scrolling through their phones. My sister asked if she'd still be getting the condo he promised her, even before they started reading. My parents didn't even shush her. The lawyer cleared his throat and opened a handwritten letter from my grandfather. He said he'd updated the will just 2 months before his death. And to my shock, to everyone's shock, he left everything to me. All of it. His land, his stocks, his savings. $5.2 million. He wrote, in his own shaky handwriting, "Give this to the one who needed it most. The one who was never given anything." I didn't cry. I didn't cheer. I just sat there, in total silence, as my parents' faces turned to stone and my sister's mouth hung open like she'd just witnessed betrayal. My mom stood up immediately. "That can't be right," she said. "He must have been confused." The lawyer shook his head. "It's valid. We had it notarized. Witnessed. Everything is in order." For the first time in my life, I felt like I was finally going to get a chance. A real start. A real life. And I knew it would make them angry. But I didn't care. I thought they'd challenge it, maybe delay things, throw a fit. What I didn't expect was what happened next. Because just days later, the lawyer called me, and his voice was tense. He said the will had been updated again. That suddenly, without explanation, my sister was now listed as the sole beneficiary. Everything, all of it, was going to her. I asked how that was possible. He sounded shaken. "It's not his handwriting. And it wasn't filed through our office. It was filed by a different firm." That's when I knew. They didn't just challenge the will. They forged it. And they were going to get away with it. Unless I did something. When I confronted my parents about the new will, I didn't go in angry. I didn't yell. I simply sat across from them at their kitchen table, the same table where my sister had once unwrapped a brand new iPhone while I was told to use my cracked Android until it completely stopped working. My voice was calm, almost too calm. I said, "The will was forged. It's not Grandpa's handwriting. It wasn't filed by his lawyer. Do you really think I wouldn't notice?" My mom didn't blink. She didn't even act surprised. She just tilted her head and said, "He was old. Maybe he changed his mind." My dad added, "He loved all of you. Maybe he didn't want anyone to feel left out." Left out. That was rich, coming from the people who left me out of everything for over 2 decades. I looked over at my sister, who was sprawled out on the couch, scrolling through her phone like none of this mattered. I asked her directly, "Did you do this? Did you sign his name?" She looked up, smirked, and said, "Why would I need to? He always wanted me to have it. Try proving otherwise." And that's when it clicked. They knew what they had done. They weren't afraid. They assumed I was too weak, too poor, too small to fight back. And maybe I was, once. But not anymore. I didn't argue with them. I didn't beg. I just stood up, said okay, and walked out. I went home, closed the door behind me, and let myself cry. Not because I lost the money. Not even because I lost the house or the stocks or the land. I cried because it was finally undeniable. They didn't love me. Not really. Not in the way parents are supposed to. And they never would. I was nothing more than a tool to them. A name, a signature, a way to fund the child they actually cared about. But after that night, something shifted in me. The crying stopped. The heartbreak hardened. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I wasn't going to scream or post or make a scene. I was going to do what they never expected. I was going to stay quiet. I was going to stay patient. And I was going to take it all back, piece by piece. Because the difference between them and me, they took what they didn't earn. I was going to earn everything, and then make sure they regretted every decision they ever made. For the next 3 months, I said nothing. Not a word to my parents, not a word to my sister. They assumed I had given up, that I was too overwhelmed, too broke, too weak to fight them. I let them believe that. I posted nothing online. I stopped replying to family messages. I didn't even show up to my cousin's wedding because I knew they'd all be there parading my sister around like she was royalty. I used that silence wisely. I found my grandfather's actual lawyer, the one who drafted the original will. He had retired, but he remembered me. He remembered my grandfather's final visit, how clear his mind had been, how specific he was about everything going to me. The moment I told him what had happened, he offered to help. He connected me with a forensic handwriting expert, someone who had testified in dozens of legal cases. I sent the fake will and the original side by side. It wasn't even close. The signatures didn't match. The spacing was off. The ink had been printed, not signed. Whoever had done this didn't even try hard to hide it. They just assumed I wouldn't look that closely. While that investigation built quietly in the background, I focused on something else, something bigger. I started investing. Quietly, carefully. I liquidated what little savings I had left and put it into real estate. Not flashy, not dramatic. Cheap foreclosure homes in bad neighborhoods. Fixer-uppers. I watched hours of videos, joined online forums, taught myself how to flip properties. My first profit was only $12,000, barely anything compared to what they stole from me. But it was mine. It was real. And it was just the beginning. Every time I made a little profit, I reinvested. I flipped again, then again. By the end of the third month, I had quietly bought 6 properties, all within a 2-mile radius of my sister's new mansion. Not one person in my family knew. They thought I was still broke, living paycheck to paycheck, crying myself to sleep over what they did. But while they were posting brunch photos and vacation selfies, I was buying the ground underneath their future. I didn't want to just get back what I lost. I wanted them to see what it felt like, to watch everything they loved get slowly, silently taken away. And trust me, I was just getting started. It wasn't just about buying properties anymore. It became personal. I started watching my sister's social media more closely, not because I cared, but because it told me exactly what she valued. She'd post tours of her mansion almost daily. Manifesting abundance, she'd say, walking barefoot across the marble floors. She threw wine tastings, yoga retreats, brunches by the pool, all carefully curated for her followers. The mansion was her brand, her identity. So I did what she never expected. I quietly bought the lot next door. It had been empty for years, overgrown and worthless to most people. But I had a plan. I filed the paperwork under an LLC with a neutral name. Then I reached out to a local nonprofit and offered the space, for free, as a site for a transitional shelter for single mothers and displaced women. The city loved it. They fast-tracked the permits. Within 6 weeks, the land next to her peaceful, influencer-friendly mansion became a construction zone filled with noise, trucks, shouting, and the occasional protest from people who didn't want a shelter in a luxury area. My sister threw a fit online. "The neighborhood is changing," she said. "It's ruining the aesthetic." She posted tearful stories about how she couldn't sleep with the noise. Meanwhile, I bought the lot behind her property too, the one she used for her Instagram Forest Vibes walks. I didn't even need to develop that one. I just let it rot. Dead trees, trash, the occasional raccoon nest. Then I bought the house across the street. That one was my favorite. I turned it into a 24-hour auto shop. Neon lights, engines revving at 2 a.m., people coming and going at all hours. The kind of place that doesn't look good in the background of luxury home tours. Her social media presence tanked. Brands stopped reaching out. Her engagement dropped. She made videos crying about how her once peaceful street had been invaded by chaos. And I just watched, silent, calm, and ruthless. Every complaint she filed with the city went nowhere. Because while she was busy chasing clout, I was meeting with the city council, donating, networking, building relationships. My name wasn't on anything, but my influence was. She had no idea who was behind it all. My parents started complaining too. "Your sister's mental health is struggling," my mom said in a voice message. "She's losing sleep. She's not herself." I didn't reply, because I was finally becoming myself. Not the quiet, invisible daughter they could overlook, but the woman who was slowly taking back everything they stole and making them watch as it all slipped through their fingers. I knew the noise and chaos would get to her, but that wasn't the endgame. Not even close. See, people like my sister care about 2 things above all else: status and perception. Take those away, and you don't just inconvenience them. You destroy their entire identity. That's what I was aiming for. And to do that, I had to go public. Quietly, carefully, and completely anonymously. I took all the evidence I had. The original will, the forged copy, the forensic analysis, the sworn statements from my grandfather's real lawyer, and I compiled it into a neat, well-documented report. Then I sent it to a local investigative journalist, one who specialized in exposing fraud. She responded within 2 hours. "Are you willing to go on record?" she asked. I told her no. I wasn't interested in fame or credit. I just wanted the truth to come out. And I wanted it to come out loud. The article dropped 2 weeks later. The headline hit hard. Multi-million-dollar inheritance stolen in forgery scandal. Family under legal investigation. My sister's face wasn't shown, but it wasn't hard to figure out who it was. The journalist didn't hold back. She detailed everything. How the original will was replaced, how the signature didn't match, how the family rushed the paperwork through a shady firm with no verification. My sister's social media exploded. Brands dropped her overnight. Her comments were filled with people asking if she really stole from her own family. She tried to do damage control, crying on live streams, blaming haters, and jealous people trying to ruin her life. But her carefully crafted image? It was cracked wide open. And then came the legal notice. The estate was frozen pending investigation. The house she'd been living in, flaunting like a trophy, was no longer hers to keep. And my parents? They were slapped with a fraud charge. They tried to play innocent, of course. My dad claimed he didn't know what was happening. My mom said it was all a misunderstanding. But the documents didn't lie. The signatures didn't lie. The law didn't care about their crocodile tears. They begged me to come to the hearing, to support them, to make a statement that it was all a mistake. I didn't go. I didn't say a word. I watched from a distance as the life they built on lies began to crumble. And for the first time in my entire life, I didn't feel powerless. I felt seen. I felt heard. And I wasn't done yet. I waited until everything was in motion, until the investigation was public, the lawyers were circling, and the mask had fully cracked before I made my final move. I scheduled a meeting with my parents and sister at the house. Not my house, not yet, but soon. The mansion that had once been filled with her laughter, her influencer voice bouncing off the marble walls. Now it felt like a hollow shell. No lights, no music, just silence, and tension thick in the air. They sat on the velvet couch, all three of them, like they were still in control. My mother tried to smile at me, but it faltered. My father looked tired. My sister wouldn't meet my eyes. I sat across from them and placed a stack of documents on the table. Final legal notices. Transfer of ownership. Confirmation that the inheritance was reverting back to me. The fraud case wasn't just proven, it was closed. My sister began to cry the moment she realized what was happening. Real tears this time. Not the performative ones she used for sympathy online. "You're seriously going to take the house?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Where am I supposed to go?" I looked at her for a long moment. Then I asked, "Where was I supposed to go when you stole everything from me?" She had no answer. My mom stood up, her voice trembling. "We made mistakes, okay? But we're family. This is cruel." I tilted my head. Cruel? Like handing me $42,000 in debt while you gave her a mansion? Like forging a dead man's will and smiling about it? My dad rubbed his face like he wanted to disappear. I didn't know it'd go this far. I nodded slowly. I did. I knew exactly how far it would go. My voice didn't shake. Not once. I had dreamed of this moment, agonized over what I would say. But now that it was here, I didn't need speeches. I just needed the truth to sit between us like a bomb. I told them they had 30 days to vacate the property. The lawyers would handle the rest. They tried to argue, to delay, to manipulate. But there was no space left for that. The story was out. The law was done. And for the first time, I held the pen. As I walked out, my sister called out behind me, desperate and angry. "You ruined our lives." I stopped, turned back for one last look. "No," I said. "You ruined mine. I just stopped letting you get away with it." Then I left, and I didn't look back. After everything, people kept asking me what I planned to do with the money, with the mansion, with the power I'd taken back. Some assumed I'd sell it all and disappear. Others thought I'd flaunt it, become exactly like the person who tried to ruin me. But that was never the point. I didn't want to become my sister. I didn't want their approval. I just wanted peace. I kept the inheritance, not to live lavishly, but to live freely. I paid off my student loans. I bought a modest house in a quiet town 2 hours away. I didn't need luxury. I needed silence. I turned one of my grandfather's land plots into a public park, a place where kids could play and tired people could breathe for free. I donated a large part of the estate to scholarships for students like me, the invisible ones, the ones whose families looked at them and only saw utility. I made sure every donation was anonymous. My name didn't need to be attached. I wasn't chasing recognition. I was chasing healing. As for my parents, they lost their status quickly. Their friends distanced themselves when the scandal broke. The country club revoked their membership. The polite smiles stopped. No one wants to be associated with exposed fraud. They had to downsize, sell their car, cancel vacations. They reached out a few times. Emails, messages. My mom even sent a birthday card with $20 in it, as if that erased everything. I never responded. I didn't hate them anymore. I just didn't trust them with access to my peace. And my sister, she ended up renting a small apartment in a neighborhood she used to mock. The followers never returned. Brands cut her off. Her influence faded like dust in sunlight. The mansion she once bragged about is now up for lease. Only no one wants to live next to a 24-hour garage and a transitional shelter. But here's the part no one knows. She's actually renting a room in one of the properties I bought. She has no idea. Every month, she sends a check to a faceless LLC, thinking it belongs to some heartless landlord. She once tried to negotiate the rent, claimed she deserved better. I raised it by $10. Just 10. A small reminder that actions have consequences, and that sometimes karma doesn't scream. It whispers, softly, every single month. I don't need revenge anymore. I have peace. I have silence. I have a life that no one handed to me. A life I built, brick by brick, when no one believed I could. And that's worth more than anything they ever stole. If this story made you feel something, whether it was anger, hope, or quiet satisfaction, consider subscribing for more stories that pull you in and stay with you long after they end. Leave a comment below. Have you ever been the outsider in your own family? I read every single one. And if you like this, share it with someone who needs a reminder that quiet strength is the loudest kind. Thank you for listening.